Hey everyone, it is I, Scarred Hero, and welcome to episode 3 of the weekly Yozakura podcast. Today we're going to be discussing chapter 162, career counseling, as well as some volume 16 sales and some other special news related to the series. Now for starters, this week's table of contents has Mission Yozakura Family. Since it has a color page, it isn't exactly ranked, but it is between the 9th and 10th spot, so kind of in the middle-ish, endish section of the magazine, which is kind of where it's been a lot recently. Even recently it was like dead last place, or not dead last, I think it was second to last, only behind the only one it was in front of was Tokyo Demon Bride Story, which is a newer series that hasn't been doing well to my knowledge. But so again, because Mission Yozakura Family is an established series, it doesn't really need to worry about table of contents placements, but it is still interesting information to know, which is why I choose to talk about it. Like I said, again, Mission Yozakura Family got a color page this week too, so that's also nice news. It shows promotion. Now, in terms of the sales of volume 16, no weekly Shonen Jump volumes made the Oricon rankings for the second week of January, which sounds really bad. But if we look at the Shoseki estimations for the second week, we see Mission Yozakura Family made 7,571 copies sold within the second week, which brings it to a total of 30,721 copies, which, I mean, it seems like Mission Yozakura Family's like volume sales, they hit their peak around volumes, I want to say 9 or 10 or 11, around that range. And they kind of started to drop afterwards, or at least stagnant. But we see volume 16 is an improvement from last volume, volume 15, which was in turn an improvement from volume 14. So we are seeing a tiny bit of a sales growth, but we are still below the peak of the series in terms of volume sales. Hopefully with the anime coming out again, we'll see those sales rising. And I have confidence that Mission Yozakura Family will be a success, eventually more of a success. And I believe Shonen Jump has that faith too, because the Jump shop in Tokyo updated its entrance. Now, since this is a podcast, I can't show a picture of what exactly I'm talking about, but in Tokyo there is a Jump shop, which, as you'd guess, sells merchandise based off Shonen Jump manga, and the entrance to this shop has been updated to include more, or I shouldn't say more, but different characters. Previously, the entrance was pretty outdated after looking at it. It seems that the previous entrance had Kuroko's basketball, One Piece, and it's a low quality picture I'm looking at, so I can't make out everything. But I see Niseko, World Trigger, Gintama, Naruto, Haikyuu, One Piece, Kuroko's basketball, Assassination Classroom, and there's 2 characters I can't quite make out, but I'm guessing they're Bleach and Food Wars. Now, if you are aware of these series, then you probably know that pretty much all of them, with the exception of World Trigger and One Piece, are finished, which is not great because you want to have in the entrance to a shop, you want it to represent the kind of stuff that you're selling now. In this entrance, it represents the previous generation of Jump series, and it doesn't really reflect the current generation, which is why that it excites me that when they updated their entrance, they decided to include now Dragon Ball, One Piece, Haikyuu, My Hero Academia, Black Clover, Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, Jujutsu Kaisen, Mission Yozakura Family, Undead Unluck, Mashle, and Sakamoto Days. And this excites me, especially as someone who's gotten into reading Shonen Jump within the past 3 years, ever since Mission Yozakura Family came out. This entrance, it's kind of exciting because I feel like it represents like my generation of Jump, you know? So we have a few series that have already ended. Obviously, we have Dragon Ball, Demon Slayer, and Haikyuu. And I guess you could make an argument that Dragon Ball is still kind of ongoing in the form of Dragon Ball Super, but it's not a mainline Jump title anymore, and it hasn't been since the 90s. But obviously, Dragon Ball, Demon Slayer, and to a little bit of a lesser extent, Haikyuu are still very popular and relevant series, so it makes sense for them to be here on this entrance. But everything else is ongoing. We have One Piece, My Hero, Black Clover, and Jujutsu Kaisen, which absolutely makes sense because they're kind of like the forefront of current Jump, you could say. With Asta from Black Clover, obviously you could make an argument that other series are about doing the same numbers that it's doing now, but Black Clover, absolutely a huge success for the magazine, so it makes sense. But then you got the newer series, Mission Yozakura Family, Undead Unluck, Mashle, and Sakamoto Days. And this is very interesting to me because we have Undead Unluck and Mashle are getting their anime, so they absolutely make sense. But I'm excited to see Mission Yozakura Family here because if you think about it, they could have put other series for Mission Yozakura Family. Yes, Mission Yozakura Family is getting its anime. It got its anime announced. We all know this. But you know what also has an anime ongoing right now? Me and Roboko. So Me and Roboko was kind of snubbed from this entrance, and Me and Roboko it's decently popular. It's by no means a massive breakout hit, but it has its fan base. And Sakamoto Days is there, and it's the only one out of this entire kind of roster of series on the entrance that doesn't have an anime announced, but it's still deserved because one, Me and Roboko and High School Family are the only two series separating Sakamoto Days from that Mission Yozakura Family, Undead Unluck, and Mashle group. So it makes sense for them to kind of skip over the two gag series and instead put Sakamoto Days. And Sakamoto Days is doing really good in terms of sales, so it makes sense that that's there. But Mission Yozakura Family being here among everyone excites me because there's just other series they could have chosen. They could have chosen Blue Box and The Elusive Samurai is mainly what I'm thinking of. But the fact that they're choosing to put Mission Yozakura Family there now, it shows to me that Jump has this faith that Mission Yozakura Family will live up and become worthy to be among these absolute powerhouses. Especially in the upcoming years, because Mashle, Undead Unluck, they've been doing good from the start. It's a safe bet that they're going to blow up and stuff, and they're already, just kind of at that level, but arguably for Undead Unluck. But Mission Yozakura Family, it just makes me I'm excited. This is very hyped news. So, but enough about merch shop entrances, and let's get into discussing the actual chapter this week. Now, as I mentioned last week that we found out according to the chapter preview, this chapter is about Taiyo going through career counseling. Now, what I expected when I saw this preview is that Taiyo was going back to school, he was going to talk to teachers, and he'd have to they'd be interviewing him for his career counseling, assuming he's just this normal kid when in actuality he's a spy. But it's different because it's the spy association that is conducting this career counseling interview for Tayo. Apparently they do this for all the minors in the association. So Kai, the president of the spy association, he's like, hey Tayo, it's been almost a year since you and Mutsumi got married, which is a very, very cool information to have, because this is the first time we've really had confirmation of a passage of time in the series. All this time we've kind of just been like theorizing on how much time has passed, but now we have a concrete canon time passing confirmed. And so Kai tells Tayo how it's been almost a year since you and Mutsumi got married, but you're only married in the eyes of the Yozakura family in the spy world, and to normal society, they're still engaged. So Tayo kind of has to think about what type of spy he wants to be. Kai kind of wants him to carve an identity for himself, so when people want to hire Tayo, they have more of an idea of his skill set and what he brings to the table. So that's what this chapter is about. It's Tayo, he goes around to each member of the family and tries to think about like what type of spy he wants to be. And he talks to Futaba and Shinso, and they're like, hey, why don't you be a frontlines fighter like us? Your blooming ability, it's perfect for fighting, and they give valid points as to why he should be a frontline fighter. But then Tayo leaves and he goes to Nanio, Shion, and Kengo, and they're all like, well, yeah, but I think you'd be better as a support spy. And they're all trying to convince him on like the benefits of being like a support and in the background like those three. And it has a lot, like there's a lot of funny moments within these few pages of like them talking to Tayo, trying to convince him to be one of us, you know. And we see Shinso like MMA boxing against Futaba, which is pretty funny. And I mean, it was just like an entertaining read. Like it flowed well. It was just nice and fun. And it's a nice cool down because we just got out of the Sea Blossom arc with all that fighting and a very intense storyline. But now we're in that cool down where we have just Tayo, chilling, talking to the family. But despite that, what I really like about Mission Yozakura Family is how even if it is like calm, cool down moments, we still see a little bit of a progression because Tayo is seriously thinking about the future here. Like while this chapter could feel like mundane, it does genuinely, it has its importance, and it's just an entertaining read. So again, we see some nice back to the fun family dynamics that we've been without for a while, and we get a little bit like more like lore. We see this thing with like Hulong's picture of Kengo. I thought that was cute, and we just see, I'm repeating myself, I know, but just the family dynamics that are just fun. It's comedic. It's great stuff, and I'm glad to see that we're back to this. Not that I didn't like the action aspects of the story. I definitely do. I love the action, but it's nice to have this change of pace. But after Tayo talks to every member of the family, with the exception of Kyoichiro, he goes back to Kai and decides that the spy he wants to be most like is Kyoichiro. And Tayo's like, no matter who I talk to, he saw Kyoichiro in everything, because Kyoichiro is kind of like a jack of all trades. That's his identity in the series. He's just like easily the all-around best spy, and Tayo recognizes that, and he sees how much work Kyoichiro puts into protecting Mutsumi, both from a frontlines aspect and a support aspect. So Tayo's like, I want to be a spy who can protect Mutsumi no matter what, just like Kyoichiro does. And I thought that was such a cute moment. I've mentioned before how I really enjoyed Tayo and Kyoichiro's dynamic, so every time I see Taiyo acknowledged Kyoichiro or Kyoichiro acknowledged Taiyo, it really warms my heart because they just have such a great dynamic where they have the same goal, like different ways of going about it, but in terms of their motivation, they're fundamentally the same. And seeing them kind of like go back and forth and how their personalities play off of each other despite their similar motivations, it's just great stuff. So, and we also see Kai kind of acknowledge Taiyo here, because Taiyo's kind of being self-deprecating and like, though he's way out of my league, I know I'll never be like him. Kai's like, I wouldn't say never, because after all, you're the only person to ever overcome him. And then we kind of see a flashback panels of when chapter 1, when Taiyo basically wins over Kyoichiro so he can marry Mutsumi. Then we see an interesting final page, or I should say funny, because we see Kyoichiro lying in front of the door, like sobbing his eyes out because he can't go into Mutsumi's room. And it's funny because it's the security door that he installed for her. So we see what Taiyo was talking about, how Kyoichiro's able to do all this stuff for Mutsumi, but then we also see him kind of like in a comedic way regret choosing Kyoichiro as his role model, just because at the end of the day, Kyoichiro is annoying. But so yeah, very cool chapter. It's a nice way of getting back into the slice of life stuff, which is the purpose of the color page we got, which by the way I didn't talk about. This color page is very beautiful. I love the art in this series so much. Like, Gondaira is such a great artist. It's Kengo and Futaba painting their nails, and it's just very cute, very well drawn, very well colored, and I'm excited to go back to the slice of life things. So that's the chapter this week, but there is one more interesting thing I have to talk about, and that is the next chapter preview. The Spanish version of Mission Yozakura Family translated this chapter preview, and apparently next week the Yozakura family is supposed to get some sort of visitor. So this is very exciting, and not in like, you have to think about it. We got this color page this week for getting back into the slice of life stuff. So I highly doubt that this visitor is going to be like relevant or something to like a new story arc. But I mean, a visitor could mean the reappearance of a side character, which is something I know myself and a lot of other fans of the series have really been looking forward to, because again, this series could really utilize its side characters more. So I'm kind of hoping it's either Sui from the Hinageki, Sosuke, or Hatoda. I think all three of these would be pretty cool, because Hatoda we haven't seen in a while. Sosuke, I mean, we saw Sosuke last time in chapter 88, I think, which honestly, that's been a while too. So a lot of these characters we haven't seen in a long time, and it'd be nice to see them again, especially if it's for slice of life stuff where we can kind of characterize them more. And it'd be nice to see, we've utilized the family in the series enough, so it'd just be really nice to see more of these side characters interacting with the family and just adding to the dynamics of the series, because we all know how fun and entertaining the family dynamic is. So if we throw new characters into the mix this far into the series, we're 160 plus chapters in, so I feel like it's okay for things to kind of be switched up a bit. So I'm excited for next week's chapter. And one more thing, speaking of the future, I did mention last week with the career counseling thing how I feel like it could kind of tease a time skip. I think this chapter really confirmed that to me, because we see Kai directly tell Taiyo how much time has passed in the series so far, and he tells him about the future and how that soon Taya will be 18. So I'm guessing we'll get a year time skip soon, and I really hope we do. And that also makes sense if we're seeing more of the side characters now. Like, I could totally see the story flowing like this. After this chapter, we get this visitor to the Yozakura family, which an old fan favorite side character returns, something like that. So we start to see a little bit more of these earlier characters, and then after a few chapters of seeing them again, we go into a year time skip where Tayo and Mutsumi are now 18, and I feel like that could just do a lot of things for the series. Time skips are always so cool because like they can switch up designs a bit and just make characters look or act cooler, have new abilities. There's just so much potential for time skip, and it's exciting. So very excited for not only next week of Mission Yozakura Family, but the upcoming weeks of Mission Yozakura Family as usual. And I'd like to thank you all for once again listening to another episode of Weekly Yozakura Podcast. And with that said, I'll see you guys later.